Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. We are here to help you out. Now, let's just get to it.
The Second Amendment. Donovan has done some research, and all of it negative, I'm sure. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to hear what he has to say, and I think you should hear what he has to say because, like I said, Donovan and I don't agree on everything, and this is, I think, one of the things we don't agree on. But it doesn't mean that we can't, go have a drink, get that in the camera, or coffee. We're still good friends. So, Donovan, I'm just going to let you start up. If I hear something that I think is a little out of whack, maybe I'll jump in, but I'll wave at you so that I don't step on you, and you can thought. Okie doke.
Ready to go.
All right.
As you know, we were talking about the Second Amendment here. John's favorite. And so I'm gonna read the Second Amendment. The one thing me and John we're talking. I don't know if we talked about it on the show itself, but we definitely mentioned it. It was our surprise is that the Second Amendment is so short and brief. The Second Amendment, the well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And
can I ask you just
that's it. I know you talked about it, so you read it off too, but I just want to make sure you read it again.
Oh, no, absolutely. I just wanted to ask you real quickly, in your version, is the people capitalized?
It is not.
Okay, hold on a second, because I want to make sure that I don't lie.
I'm looking at two different copies of it. I'm not sure if it's an actual copy of the but it's not. Neither one of them have the people capitalized.
I wouldn't be able to tell you on this one because it's just too freaking small. But I'm fairly certain that in the actual document of the Second Amendment, the people is capitalized. But nonetheless, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to read it over again just so we know.
Absolutely
about that. As you know, we talked about Second Amendment. I looked up pros and cons to the Second Amendment. I came up with two web pages that I really liked. I looked at the National Youth Leadership Network. They had a pretty good one. But the one I'm going to use was the one I found of a group called Connect Us Fund, Connect Us US, and it's a Christian blog. So I thought it would be a good one for me to use. So as John knows, how shall I say?
Bent?
I want to say bent, but wariness of religion. So she goes through, what's her name? It's all we got at the bottom. Make sure I get it. Oops. Natalie Rigoli. She's a child of God, devoted wife, mother of two boys. She has a master's degree in law from University of Texas. Has been published in several national journals and has been practicing law for 18 years.
In Texas. It's important to say that because a Texas law degree doesn't apply anyplace else outside of Texas. Because in Texas, he needed killing is a good defense.
So
that's a joke. Just in case you guys don't freak out. Don't freak out.
It's okay.
It's not real.
All right, so I'm just gonna start off here. I'm not gonna go. I'm just gonna read off the actual, just the pro. I might go into a little bit of what they have under that, but I'm just gonna read them off because I don't want to waste time going through all this. We will have all these websites. I'll send these to John so you can actually look through them too. List pros of the Second Amendment. Gun ownership works to reduce other types of crime in society.
Well-armed society is a polite society.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the very last sentence. Owning a gun can even reduce homicide numbers, sexual assault, aggravated assault by at least 5%, she says. She doesn't cite any of her information, but I'm
that is bullshit.
Wait, I take that back. Let me go back up here. Okay, not on this one. Second Amendment, number 2, pro. Second Amendment offers people a chance to defend themselves. Here she says, according to information published by the National Sheriff's Association, the average amount of time for a school shooting takes place is 2.5 minutes. It takes police officers 18 minutes to respond to first calls from across emergency lines. Actually, this is the whole thing she's saying here. Active shooter incidents in all locations, but especially schools, have risen at an alarming rate in recent years. During the entire decade of the 1960s, there was one. 2015, there were 55 active shooter incidents in American schools. She says here, a gentleman named Cooper wrote, the only choice that we can make is one that allows us to protect ourselves. We can't stop bad people from getting their hands on a gun to use it for evil purposes, but we can help good people find ways to stop them with the same tool.
Right.
Third pro, it reinforces the laws of the Constitution by its mere presence in the Bill of Rights. Alan Dershowitz, well, I'm not a fan of. She says, really? Alan Dershowitz may not be a fan favorite of every conservative in the United States, but he does offer this observation of the Second Amendment. Foolish liberals who are trying to read the Second Amendment out of the Constitution by claiming it's not an individual right or that it's too much of a public safety hazard don't see the danger in the big picture. They're courting disaster by encouraging others to use the same means to eliminate portions of the Constitution they don't like, which is something me and John had talked about most recently of the Texas abortion law. How a pro-gun organization, I forget which one, has signed on going against the law because they're concerned that the way that law is written in Texas could be used to go against other constitutional rights, like abortion was in Texas or is in Texas. So, yeah, yeah, and those are conservatives that did not liberals. So, guns might be controversial in some ways because of the ease they inflict damage, but it's also because of this tool that people in the U.S. have the freedoms that are available to them. You start to erode one granted right, it does not take long for more of them to experience the same outcome. It's kind of a slippery slope argument, but that's what she has. Second Amendment. The Second Amendment allows the average person to defend their country. Militias, which is stated in the Second Amendment itself. The entire point of the Second Amendment, I'm reading here, from the perspective of the founding fathers, is still valid. When you own a gun, it's more difficult to take away what you have earned in life than if you did not own that weapon. People think twice or more about trying to take something from you, including domestic and foreign governments. You have the capacity to defend yourself adequately. So that's there. So these are all pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure I go through them. 5, it allows for a well-regulated militia in the U.S. culture. Again, as part of the one I was just reading, this option allows for states to develop their own defensive resources without costing taxpayers money in other locations. So if you need to defend your home for any reason, all you need to do is get together, form a militia, and follow whatever state rules are in place for that organization. So it's all different, I guess, in each state. 6, you must qualify to own a gun in the United States already. This one I am going to read. There are already regulations in place that make it impossible for anyone to walk into a gun shop to make a purchase. Any store that sells firearms must use the National Instant Criminal Background Check system called the NICS to see if there are any records in place that would prevent a customer from owning a gun. The system scans 3 different databases to ensure there are no matches. Anyone declared mentally unfit, convicted of a felony, or receives a misdemeanor sentence of 2+ years will not qualify for purchase. Lying on the forms in an attempt to purchase the gun is also considered an illegal act and could strip you of the firearm when discovered. 7, Second Amendment offers more checks and balances for society.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just real quickly, if you lie on that form and say, I've never taken drugs or I don't have any misdemeanor or felony, and they find out, that's a felony. You can go away for quite some time, and lose every weapon you have, period. So I'm sorry, just to throw that on top of it.
I'm curious to know what the 3 databases are. She doesn't say what they are.
They're all in FBI databases. So the FBI has in California, and actually I believe this is nationwide, but when you fill out that form, the FBI has 10 days to complete the search because it's, they just type in this stuff and not whatever comes up. And their computers search those databases, those 3 databases. I used to know them, I'm sorry. At any rate.
It's okay.
So they have 10 days to complete the check because it should come back in like 30 minutes. Honestly, that's how long it takes. But if they don't complete that check in 10 days, then it is considered completed and it goes back to the firearms dealer and the dealer can give you the gun.
Okay. Is that just handguns, or does that like include rifles as well?
Uh,
I'm just curious. And it might be different for
I'm
every
actually
state.
for rifles. Yes, for rifles, it does. You are required to go through that. For shotguns, it's a different thing altogether.
Oh, really? So it's depending on the style of gun.
Yes, and
Okay.
and actually, I was just listening to somebody about this today. You don't care about. I mean, nobody's really going to care about this minutia, but there's four types of weapons that you can buy from a store or legally that are not automatic weapons, that are not military war weapons. You can't buy a tank from a store, that kind of thing. You can't buy an M60 from a store. That's a specific place you can go, and you have to fill out all kinds of paperwork and wait upwards of a year or two to get the license to get it. And anyway, it's not really, it's neither here and there. An M60 is a big ass machine gun.
I know what an M60 is.
Okay.
They have them on helicopters.
I'm just saying, yeah, you can't just go out and buy one of those at your local store. But what you can buy is a handgun, a rifle, a shotgun, and what is called an other. The ATF, before it just went completely wacky, has made these four categories the categories that you are allowed to buy at a store. Now, the other is a weapon that doesn't fit into the first three categories. And generally speaking, and I mean widely generally speaking, we're talking black powder, which is a whole different level of weaponry. And you should really train very much with one of those before you buy one, because black powder in and of itself is extremely explosive. And if you just set it in a little,
musket type of weapon.
Yeah, musket or Kentucky long rifle that use black powder as well. So yeah, as a matter of fact, my wife's uncle, before he passed away, he was really into the mountain man stuff, and he had a lot of black powder equipment. And it scared the crap out of me every time I was in his house, because I know black powder is extremely flammable. But yeah, and there's other weapons that are similar to that, in that they aren't rifled barrels, like unlike a shotgun, which is not a rifled barrel either. However, it's not a I don't want to shoot a slug out of a shotgun. You can, but it's not rifled. It will just go straight and then eventually, wander off in its own direction. But yeah, generally they're not rifled, or if they are rifled, it's like you get a Kentucky long rifle, you're talking like a 36-inch barrel.
I know what they are.
30 to 36-inch barrel, right?
With the wide end, right? That's the one.
No, that's a blunderbuss.
Oh, blunderbuss.
Kentucky long rifle is actually a rifle, and it's called a rifle because it does have a rifling in it. But the rifling is like a good AR-15 has a 1 in 7 to 1 in 9 twist, which means it twists once over 9 inches. A Kentucky long rifle has 1 in 36. So technically it's rifled, but yeah, it takes a while to get that spun up. So, and it fires a ball as opposed to a bullet.
Oh, wow.
And that's the biggest difference. So they spend a great deal of time cleaning those balls, because they make it. My uncle's, or my wife's uncle, used to make them. And yeah, I know balls. But to make them, right, you have you melt the lead, and then it's a press, a ball, like it looks like a orange juice squeezer, basically, and it makes a small ball. I think his was
like lead weights for fishing. My dad used
exactly.
To yeah.
Oh, did your dad used to do that? Yeah.
So my dad used to do those too.
So yeah, it's I think we're kind of getting off the track, and I apologize, but yeah. So there's those four basic.
That's
that you can buy at a store.
Okay.
What's that?
I said that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I was kind of curious about that too. So that's kind of interesting. That's good. Good to know. Very, very cool. All right. So 7, Second Amendment offers more checks and balances for society. Founding fathers wanted to make sure no branch could hold more power over the other. Second Amendment offers the same benefit for the average person. It's a way to protect individual liberties, to ensure that you are not deprived of the right to pursue happiness. Truth is that all men having power ought to be mistrusted, said James Madison. Gun ownership is a way to ensure that the government is obliged to control itself in addition to supervising the government. Here we go. That's the last one for the pros. What's the cons? John's favorite. It does not provide for the safe usage and implementation of a gun in society. Quote, saying gun control hurts our freedom is a false argument amounting to propaganda, says Deshaun Stokes. Gun laws don't, let me finish. Gun laws don't curtail freedom any more than speed limits or seatbelts. You still get to drive your car and have guns. We're just trying to save lives as you do. Although the Second Amendment does allow for the private ownership of guns according to the current interpretation offered by the Supreme Court, it does not contain provisions that require the safe use of this tool. That level of implementation is left to the states, which means there's a patchwork series of laws that gun owners must follow to stay in compliance. Go, John.
Okay, well, my question is, and I hope that, okay, ladies and gentlemen, just real quickly, I don't know what's going on with my mic. We're having, and now it goes in and out, I guess.
You sound fine to me, though.
Okay, well, hopefully that's the recording. At any rate, just to let you guys know, I hear a weird echo. If you guys hear it, I apologize. Are they talking about level of training for owning a weapon?
That sounds what it sounds like to me, is what they're saying.
Okay, because I don't have an issue with that at all. I actually believe in training. I think if you don't train, you know, honestly, if you don't train at all and you just pick the gun up and expect to hit something with it, trust me when I say, unless you're less than 5 feet away, you won't hit what you're pointing at. It takes very, very little change in the point of the weapon to move that bullet 4 or 5 feet off of what you're shooting at.
Yeah.
Trust me when I say training is everything in weapons handling. There are 4 main rules, and if you learn those 4 rules, and there's a 5th one if you want to play games, but there's 4 main rules. If you learn those 4 rules, you cannot hurt anyone.
So
train with your weapon. Make sure that you can hit what you're pointing at.
I've never trained with a gun, but I have fired a gun. I fired a handgun and a rifle.
Oh, you are into it. For such a treat when you come back out here.
Yeah, it's
I'm going to take you and show you how to shoot.
Decades. It's been decades though, so a long time. But I have fired a handgun and a rifle.
Do you know how big they were?
I don't remember what they were. I was actually pretty young when I fired a handgun. I was out camping and stuff. And my dad's friends, he had one.
Yeah. That's how most of us got started. I was out there. I was out in the backyard shooting my dad's 22. Yeah, I was out in the backyard shooting my dad's 22 at aluminum cans and scaring the crap out of my next door neighbor because I lived in the city.
Dan one year.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, keep going.
Number two, there's no guarantee that a good guy with a gun is going to be around. I love this myth myself. Deshaun Stokes has also said that the gun violence in the U.S. is not a Republican or Democrat problem, but an American problem, which I do agree with. Let me finish. And one that requires an American solution. When a country with less than 5% of the world's population has nearly 50% of the world's privately owned guns and makes up nearly a third of the world's mass shootings, it's time to stop saying guns make us safer. He said. Even though there are plenty of stories about a good guy with a gun stopping a crime that you can find, there are also more than 14,000 homicides attributed to firearms each year in the U.S. That means 4.5 deaths per 100,000 population are because of guns, which are sobering numbers to see that. All
Agreed.
Right, that's that one. Go, John.
So to go back to the first thing, give me that first thing one more time, please.
No guarantee that a good guy with a gun is going to be around. Is that what you're talking about? That's the number 2. So.
That's true. And right now, that is absolutely true. Because to be perfectly honest, as a good guy with a gun, I feel as a good guy with a gun, that I would hesitate a lot before I pulled my weapon out to get into a gunfight with anyone. If I walked in on something, you still want to hesitate because you don't know if that's another guy with a good guy with a gun. Now, an example of this is there was a shooting, and I apologize, I do not recall where, but there was 2 people involved in this shooting, and they ran into a grocery store. The guy who saw them only saw one run into the grocery store and thought there's only one bad guy. Went in there with his weapon, found the bad guy, was in behind him and raised his weapon and said, stop, drop your weapon. And that guy complied, but his partner had ended up around behind the good guy and killed him. Because there's two reasons for this. One, he was the good guy was unaware that there was more than one shooter. That's a mistake. He didn't pay enough attention. He got into the mindset, I think. Two, he did not have any situational awareness. He was so focused on what was going on in front of him that it cost him his life.
Yeah, law enforcement wouldn't do that.
Law enforcement would not have gone in alone.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
one. And two, they would have waited for backup, which means to me, there are upwards of 50 hostages in that grocery store. I don't see where the good guy, had he had better situational awareness, I think he could have taken care of the situation. Had he had good training, I think he could have taken care of the situation before the police arrived, because we already know that the average, and I think you said this, right, in the beginning, the average turnaround for a good guy with a gun or a person to defend their home in a break-in is under 2 minutes. And the turnaround for police is up to 18 minutes or
That was school shootings.
Huh?
That was school shootings.
18 minutes response time for school shootings?
Yeah, school shootings. 12 and a half minutes for the school shooting to be done. 18 minutes for police response.
To be done. Okay. I'm sorry. So yeah, if it takes police 18 minutes to arrive, just to arrive on scene, they take upwards of 10 minutes to assess before they make any moves. That's
Longer.
20. I said at least. And that's a half an hour that the kids in the school or you in your house or you in your carjack do not have. And that's why we feel as gun owners, after training, situational awareness, we can respond faster than police. But the part of response is situational awareness. You got to use your dome, because if you walk into a situation blindly, you only focused on the one guy, you don't know if you're the other good guy or if you're the other guy to somebody else in the store with a gun. So this has to work harder than this in that situation. You can't walk in with blinders on.
Yeah.
You die.
I've read that actually law enforcement doesn't really care much for good guys with a gun, because they show up and they see a guy with a gun.
No, absolutely. And that's true.
Then you're the guy. You're the guy with the gun.
However, how you respond to them, if they say, stop, drop your weapon, don't turn around and point it at them. Drop your fucking weapon. You're covered either way. If it's a cop or the bad guy, you're covered.
Yeah.
Don't turn around and point your gun, because if he's wearing a badge, he'll drop you.
Yeah.
You can't win that fight.
Yeah.
All right. Only two things you can do in that situation, and that's if there's a door right here. Get out of the way. Then you can assess the situation a little bit better, because you can ask police, what's your badge number, anything like that, to get some kind of idea of who's there. And then you can toss your weapon out and let them know, hey, I'm a good guy. There's my weapon. I do not have another weapon. Hands are up, and I'll walk out.
Yeah. They're still going to tackle you, though.
I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, just so they know.
I don't have, if I don't have my gun on my hip anymore, you can tackle me. I'm sorry,
all right, number
please
3.
continue.
Yeah, it's totally understandable, right? Number 3, gun ownership comes with great risk to the owner's household. This has always been a big one for me. Plenty of good reasons to own a gun in today's American society, but there are also a few reasons that some families believe that the rights given under the Second Amendment are not something they want to use. That is because of up to 95% of suicides that occur with a firearm are potentially preventable if the gun wasn't present in the home. Households that own just one gun carry a 7 times higher risk of experiencing premature death than those without one. Even the states which have the least amount of controls placed on gun ownership see homicide rates that are more than double than those of states with the most extensive restrictions. The problem with a firearm is that this tool doesn't offer many second chances. Yes, John.
Okay, so I just want to ask, I'm not trying to pick on you or pick on this number. I'm sorry, you said how many suicides by gun?
It said up to 95% of the suicides that
95, okay.
occur with a firearm are potentially preventable if that gun wasn't present in the home.
Right. So let me ask, I don't know if they break these numbers out, but are these ownership or just happen to be in the house with that?
It doesn't say. It just says present in the home.
Because those are actually, I think those are actually important numbers to understand better. I don't know if I don't disagree, but I don't doubt that it's probably 90 or 95% of handguns had they not been there. I also understand that it's if the individual is, no pun, dead set on committing suicide, the gun is not what's going to stop them. Or the lack thereof is not what's going to stop them.
But the gun's easy, right? That's what they're saying.
As easy as jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's different. You have to walk out onto the Golden Gate Bridge, right?
Well, you have to walk out onto any bridge. But yeah, I mean, suicide is such a...
I'm going to jump in here, and I know we talked about this. I've lost 4 friends who took their own lives with guns. I'm not a fan of guns by any means. At one point in my life, I actually wanted to own a gun when I was married, and then I kind of came against having one, especially once we adopted our kids.
Why did you want a gun when you were married?
I didn't. Well, I wanted one before I was married. Just like I wanted a motorcycle, which I still want. But
another suicide machine.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's
That's not serious, guys.
To me, it wasn't worth it. Having a gun in my house for maybe protection, when it was definitely children with guns in houses is never a good thing. So
well, yeah, and that's a different story. I mean, then, and especially now, I mean, if you go back even 10 years, locking a gun away, man, it was literally inaccessible even to the owner for upwards of 30 to 45 seconds. That could make a difference. It might not, but now they have gun safes that you lock down and are, thumbprint or fingerprint activated, and they open in like 2 seconds. And so you're able to access that weapon much quicker, but you're the only one. Or in a case of, I saw another good box today where you can put up to 2 fingerprints. So mine and my wife's, that kind of thing. If my daughter was still here, I would have one of those boxes, but she's not here anymore. And so it's in my drawer on my side of the bed. My wife knows where it is and knows how to use it. So we don't let anybody else into that part of the house anyway. So
don't piss her off, John.
You have no idea, man. I'm so fucking lucky. I'm sorry. Please continue, Donovan.
All right. 4, there are multiple ways to deter crime other than gun ownership. Both sides of the Second Amendment debate can quote statistics which support their argument. Stories of how gun ownership could save lives, just as there are times that it takes. I could read it more. Saying that guns are the only way to deter crime is laziness. The multiple facets of protection that we can implement every day, if we are willing to take bold steps to protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our communities. Can guns stop a crime? Sure. So can an alarm system, an airlock system in schools, metal detectors, and it says here there's many more methods.
What's that?
We cannot have tunnel vision on just one outcome. That's what she's saying here.
What's an airlock?
I have no idea. She said airlock. I was curious that too. It probably like a separate seals off the building, probably.
Well, I would think it probably seals off a room or like a closet in a room.
Yeah.
So you can get 5 or 6 people in there or something.
Here's another one. Number 5. It creates potential for domestic arms race. Quote, if Jesus Christ himself were to come down off the cross and grant you one wish, would you opt for a world without guns or the one we live in now? Asks Quentin Bufogel. Quote, if every gun owner truly feared for their life and liberty, the answer would be obvious. Unquote.
Really?
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah, but you can make that argument. And if Jesus were to crawl off the cross and say, what do you want? I would absolutely agree with you. But when Christ shows up, it's my belief that he will. When Christ shows up, it won't matter anymore because he's taking over. He's starting a whole new paradise. But oh, sure, go ahead.
Tangent.
I'm sorry, one more time.
I said tangent.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, no, fair. I just don't think that's a valid question. And I only say that because had he come off the cross and offered that to anybody at that time, we would never have seen guns, and swords would be plowshares, and on and on. That didn't happen. It's not going to happen. So it's kind of a, what do you call it? A false argument?
Hypothetical.
It's a false hypothetical argument.
False hypothetical on Jesus
There you
Christ.
go.
There you go. I agree to that.
I'm not sure that you're agreeing to the same thing I'm saying.
I sent John a meme earlier this year, and it said one of them has to go, and it was beer, steak, sex, and or guns, and John couldn't pick one. John said he couldn't pick one.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, oh, that's so easy. John wouldn't give up guns for sex.
I'm old. I don't.
So it was pretty funny. I thought it was easy, but not John.
Anyway,
so okay, I'm gonna continue with this one.
Yeah.
When we push toward a world of gun ownership, we are creating a society where good and evil are both racing toward a place where each feel like it could be a dominant force. This perspective is what fueled the nuclear race during the Cold War, and it is also what causes some people to stockpile firearms. There are an estimated 89 to 100 guns for every 100 Americans, but only up to 29% of households actually own one. 14% of owners have between 8 and 140 guns in possession, accounting for 50% of civilian ownership. Go ahead.
Between 8 and 140 guns?
That's what she says. 14% of owners have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a few guys who. Now, does that count collectors?
It doesn't say. It just says 14% of owners. Okay, number 6. I'm almost done here. So we already knew that the current gun control laws don't work. According to reporting from the New York Times, John's favorite, only 8 states have laws which provide an explicit mechanism so that people who are suspected of owning guns in violation of their prohibitions are required to hand them over. Some of these laws allow but do not require the police to seek a court order for confiscation. Authorities in Chicago knew for over 4 years that Gary Martin was a felon with a violent history, yet did nothing to make sure that he surrendered his Smith & Wesson handgun with a laser sight. He used that specific weapon to kill 5 of his co-workers in Aurora, Illinois in February 2019. It would be helpful to enforce the laws on our books to ensure that we are doing all that we can to stop the bad guys with guns, which I would agree with. Go ahead, John.
So defund the police wouldn't help with that.
No, but the defunding the police is just more than that, right? Defunding the police is talking about.
Oh yeah, it's not talking about doing away with them altogether, but
yeah, I mean, it's talking about like not sending armed police officers to take care of someone with mental issues, right? So things like that,
Well, you know what I'd like. I'll be honest with you. What I'd like to see in that situation is, I don't mind seeing armed officers in there, but I want to see somebody who has negotiating skills with that group. So I would like to see, like, let's just use the military for an example. The military has battalions, and then they have group, battalion, squad, and then there's unit. Okay. A unit consists of about 12 guys. That's good. A squad is, I think, 25. A unit is about 12 guys. All 12 guys work together to do different things. There's a guy that carries the BAR, which is the Browning automatic rifle. Nobody carries that anymore. I just meant he carries the big gun. Okay, there's a guy who carries the big gun. Then there's the 3 other guys that carry standard issue weapons, and then there's the 2 snipers. And there's a medic in there some ways usually. I would like to see our police start working in that kind of thought process. There's a medic with the group. There's a couple of snipers if they're needed. There's guys with issue weapons, and then there's negotiators. Because if you go to a bank robbery and the guys are inside the bank with a bunch of people that are now hostages, Who's the one that gets to talk to them? Not the dude with the rifle, not the captain, the guy who's the negotiator, the guy who knows he can get certain things, or he can talk this guy into certain things. He knows he's got a script to work with. He already knows what's going on. I think that's what we need to start looking at. If we're going to be honest with each other, we can't throw away the police. It's absolutely not an option. I don't think we can defund the police altogether either. I don't think we can just say everybody's a beat cop and nobody carries a gun anymore. That's just not a viable option either. Look at Chicago, look at DC, look at
any large city,
Baltimore, any large city.
Every look at every large city, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and that was one of the things that talks about the escalation, though. So that
yeah. So I mean, I think if police started working in that environment, things would go a lot smoother. We would see a lot less death due to suicide by cop. I just think that's the way to start working in that vein.
It's definitely a big issue in this country right now. I like to see. I mean, I am against, doing away completely with law enforcement, obviously to that degree. But what I want to see is law enforcement be more outfitted and trained and having the right, how should I say, the right tools, the right people to do those things. So now Denver, here in Colorado, where I live at now, actually has like I'm gonna use the word squad, that goes out and deals with those things instead of sending like armed police officers. I think police officers are with them, but the police officers aren't the initial contact. And there's interesting ways to do that. I mean, there's a video, I'll see if I can find it actually. I think it was in England. There was a guy, he might have been naked. He had an axe or a sword or something, was stringing it around. And the unarmed police force all showed up with these plastic shields. There must have been 20 of them. They all came around, surrounded him, and they just closed in on him and took him down, without lethal force, right? Yeah. So here's a guy with a weapon, and they all took him down. So it definitely can be done. It's just, I don't think our culture in this country is looking at that as an answer. But I think that's something we need to start looking at as well. So their culture is totally different in England.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I don't think that's. I like that solution. That's a great solution. Again, nobody really got injured. He was taken down without incident, and a weapon was removed. Nobody was killed. That's a plus, right? I think you hinted at it, where we really do have a different sense of self than actually most of Europe. We are very individualistic, and I think that may be where some of our headbutt comes from. For me, I don't know, maybe this just comes from where I come from, who I come from, the military training. I don't have a lot of fear in life. I'm not afraid of things. I don't know why. There's something broken in my head. Wouldn't surprise me. But I've always felt it's my job, more than going to work or bringing money home. It's my job to protect my home, my wife, my children, my in-laws, whoever's there. Having the ability to control a situation, either with my voice and my eyes or my weapons, to me is just what it is. And I think that mentality, especially when you come out of the military, I think you get that from that type of training. My dad was just like, the things that you need to know as a man. Early is on time is late. You are the man of the house. You must take care of it, whatever that entails. When you get married, you got to take care of your wife. You got to protect her. You got to make sure she's got everything she needs, that kind of stuff. I just think in the United States, we came out of such fear and such crushing shit that when we threw off the chains, we said we are, and we've been that way since day one. And I think that's just a thing that got passed down generationally. When you stop to look at people that were in the Revolutionary War, when they were in the Civil War, both sides, if you take away the fact that they're fighting each other and just look at what they're doing to protect their homes or their way of life or whatever, look at the West, when the West was won and everybody's walking around with a gun. And even guys that weren't walking around with guns had canes with guns, or stuff like that. It's a generational thing, and we're still so individualistic that I just think that's our biggest difference between us and anybody else on the planet. I mean, everybody else on the planet thinks they're an individual. They believe they're an individual, but you get them in a group and they group think really quickly. Americans don't group think very often. No, I mean, I'm serious. When you put 4 or 5 Americans together, they don't group think. You get them into a much larger group. The military is very group think, but we still have when I take the uniform off, when I took the uniform off, I was still me. I wasn't Airman Hegner. I was John. I reverted back to my individualistic person. And when I walked around with 4 or 5 guys, we didn't have to agree on everything, kind of like you and me. We don't agree on everything. We just don't. But we're still individualistic. I just think that's who we are. And I think that's why Europeans dislike us very much, because we don't just take crap.
I would argue the groupthink thing. I think to some degree, and not that I don't love it. I think of the individual Americans kind of a myth too, because I think when you look at America, very much so, you look at a lot of the societal expectations and pressures to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. Someone with short hair as opposed to someone like me with long hair, and what happens to me as an individual when I go out looking for a job or something like that, I'm looked at a certain way because I am not part of the regular society, right? I'm looked at as kind of a deviant, right?
You're the individual.
Yeah, so very true. And then to some degree, more individual than the people in the short hair with the shirts, ties, and suits, right? So they're all one way and I'm a different, right? So I'm different in that way. So I think that's kind of a misconception about Americans, is that we like to think of ourselves as being this individual, but we're really not. We really are all about conformity. Go ahead.
I think you ruined your own argument.
How so?
You just claim to be an individual because you're not part of the group think.
Yeah, but that's me, right? But what I'm saying is, I
do. My hair is short because I like my ears to be cool.
Whatever. All right. So 7th, and this is the last one, if I remember correctly. No, it's not. No. 7th. There's still a few more left. 7th, Second Amendment increases the cost of law enforcement, which we were just talking about too. Open carry laws for gun ownership, because of the Second Amendment, creates a phobia about this tool that increases the amount of resources that law enforcement must receive each year. 40% of Americans already say that one of their biggest fears is that they will end up the victim of a mass shooting. Firearms are already the second leading cause of death for American children and teens. Women are 21 times more likely to be killed with a gun in the United States than they are in any other high-income country. Go, John.
I can't argue with the woman thing, because I know that statistic, and it's probably the saddest statistic of all. But you said gun deaths are the second leading death of children
and teens. Firearms are already the second leading cause of death for American children and teens, is what it says.
I would look that statistic up, because the FBI.
This is a few years old. This blog is a couple years old. Not too old, because it talks about 2019 and stuff.
I was going to say, yeah,
it's relatively recent overall.
I was going to say the most recent information I have is from 2019, which is not uncommon, because the numbers from 2020 and 2021 need to be collated still, and they haven't been done. So that's not, I mean, that's to be expected. But yeah, domestic violence, especially toward women, is frightening to me. But the numbers for children, I have a great deal of doubt in the veracity of those numbers. And the only reason I say it is because cancer and auto accidents are both super high for children and teens. Suicide is high for teens, especially in the last 2 years. Those numbers again haven't been collated, but they said that in
pandemic's been hard on people.
Yeah, it said in 2020, I think suicide went up by 30%, but in children it went up by like 42%.
Yeah, with younger.
It was a stupid, crazy high number.
Which is, it's super sad and very concerning.
Well, I'm Donovan, and John's here with us today. Thank you for joining us for the free exchange of ideas, and we'll see you next time on the next show. See ya.